Well, officials have been updating us on the situation in the last hour. Mr. Johnson, we understand, is in intensive care in St Thomas's Hospital in the capital, London. This has been described as a precautionary measure. We've been told that for now, Mr. Johnson remains cautious. He's been moved into intensive care, it's said, in case he needs a ventilator, namely that he's not, we think, currently on ventilation at the moment. This after his condition apparently deteriorated during the day. As you said, Mr. Johnson was taken to hospital last night at around 8 p.m. Sunday evening, in what was also described as a precautionary measure. This after he entered the second week of his coronavirus infection. He tested positive back on March the 27th. And of course, medics will say it's in the second week that we can potentially see complications. We can potentially see patients ending up in intensive care. As I said, he tested positively originally back on March the 27th, since when he's issued various video messages, but essentially kept a low profile, self-isolating within number 11 Downing Street, claiming that he'd been suffering from mild symptoms. But these obviously persisted. The last time we saw him via video message was on Friday, when he urged the British public to take that advice to stay home seriously. Mr. Johnson tested positive around about the same time as a number of members of his inner circle. For example, we saw the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock, also testing positive, returning to work after he said what were two very difficult days. We also saw the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, testing positive, returning to work. But also all of this, obviously, a reminder of how this disease can affect people in very different ways, particularly going into the later stage of infection, that second week.
And Chris, can you tell us a little bit more about how the government is going to reshuffle in Boris Johnson's absence?
Well, the message remains that Boris Johnson very much remains Prime Minister, but those government officials saying that in terms of the day-to-day management of the coronavirus response, that will be handed on to Dominic Raab, the Foreign Secretary, a man who is his kind of anointed deputy in situations like this. We saw him chairing the coronavirus response meeting this morning and giving the UK government's daily press conference this evening. Now, obviously, now that Boris Johnson, who officials have been keen to point out has remained in charge up to now, is now in intensive care. This is obviously a potentially serious and a potentially lengthy situation for him. And it seems that it will be Mr. Raab who will be stepping to the fore for what could be perhaps a considerable period.